But thank you guys so much for being here. Um, I'm pretty sure certain everybody knows my name's Tanner Gers. I'm managing director, accessibility officer, and Heather, my co-founder and partner, as you guys all know, is the instructor for the CAT program, and that has been tremendous for helping people develop the technical skill and ability to get an entry-level job in digital accessibility. But what happens after that? Like, what happens when you have the technical skills? What happens when you are ready? You're what I would call job ready or employment ready. Your job readiness is there. You can do the job, but sometimes actually getting the job is the most difficult thing. Maybe even getting an interview seems impossible. And that's why I wanted to bring on Justin Hurd today. Justin is a graduate of the Getting Hired Playbook. This is a training that was spun off the CAT program for this exact purpose, to help individuals actually get the interview and get the job that they want. And so Justin was one of our students who came through the pilot program earlier this year, and has a super tremendous attitude, an interesting situation, and found a way to make it work. So that's a little bit about me. Justin, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, good to hear from you, Tanner. And yeah, I am Justin Hurd, as he said. I currently work as a peer support specialist for a nonprofit called Include Me Advocacy Group, and they're based in Tennessee. Basically, we help people with disabilities find employment. We also teach them independent living skills. And one cool thing that we do is we work on community integration. So we really want people with disabilities out in their communities and doing things that they like. And sometimes they just need some help doing that. So whether it's like going to the aquarium or riding a bike or um, playing tennis, whatever, going to a baseball game, we help, sort of take them out and learn the skills that they need to be integrated with their community. So that's, I'm doing a lot of different things right now because I'm still firming up my role. It's very new, but that's essentially what I do. And I also have two theology degrees, and I am not using them, so it's a different story.
Well, I mean, the social inclusion component is huge. It's such a tremendous thing because, I mean, as people with disabilities ourselves, like we know that we exist, we know how strong our community is, but the public often doesn't, right? Because we do have this kind of social isolation where, I know me personally, it's like if I don't know if I can use the bathroom, if I'm going to go somewhere, like I might not be able to go. And
Yep.
that's just a reality of the disability tax. And so that's awesome that you're doing that. Justin, uh, why don't you provide a little bit of background about your situation, your employment journey, coming out of school, and where you found yourself in Tennessee?
Sure, yeah. So I'm gonna tell my story, and this this my journey with LinkedIn, I'm just gonna tell you now, it has a lot of opportunities that didn't. There's a lot of opportunities that just nothing came of them. And so there's a lot of kind of starts and stops. Um, and that's okay. And most likely, depending on what you're trying to do, that's going to happen to you too, or just things, you really think something's going to work out and then it doesn't. And it's very frustrating and disheartening. So, but it did eventually work out. And I want to frame it that way so you know what's to come.
And Justin, before you get started too, I want to, because some people don't know the context of what you just said, so I'll explain it. So everybody, what Justin's talking about in the Getting Hired Playbook is that we teach the strategies and tactics for how to get recruiters' attention, how to get interviews, and actually how to land a job at a company that you actually want to work for. And we use LinkedIn as the primary method of communicating and making that happen. So go ahead, Justin.
Yeah. So I graduated from seminary and I really didn't know what I was going to do. A lot of the paths that I had that were seminary related, uh, faith related, had for various reasons dry up. And that's a whole long story that I won't go into. So initially, I planned to work in HR and I didn't actually want to do the Getting Hired Playbook program at first. I just was kind of like, ah, it's LinkedIn. I can just use it. I'll figure it out. I'm not worried about it. But my HR training didn't start for several months, and the LinkedIn was starting, in roughly a month from this point. And so, I just kind of like, well, I might as well do it. It's something to do, and I'll probably gain something from it. And when I started the program and trying to go down this HR route, one thing we talk about in the LinkedIn program is that thought is it's called thought leadership. And what thought leadership is you post things on your LinkedIn page that are relevant to the field you want to go into. So like if you're trying to go into HR, you want to be posting about, I don't know, maybe you want to be posting about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Maybe you want to be talking about AI and how that's playing a role in the hiring process. So you want to be posting things that are relevant. And I'm thinking about this as I'm starting the program. I can't really get my head around it. And I'm like, I don't feel passionate about HR. I don't really know a lot about it. I don't really want to know a lot about it. I don't know how I'm going to post like that. And so I talked to Tanner, and we came to the conclusion that, well, I have all this experience in disability advocacy. I've had multiple leadership positions in nonprofits, in particular the National Federation of the Blind. I've had a lot of volunteer experience. I've had a lot of summer camp jobs with blind students. So Tanner and I decided, why don't we try going this route? Why don't we try to get into that field where I can be working with people with disabilities? And I specifically, my goal was policy. I really wanted to do a lot of policy work and administrative work, and really work on the back end of things. And so I started posting, every day about things that I knew. I started going to these organizations like NIB, AFB, NFB, all the acronyms, and you know, going through their pages and seeing, okay, who works for them? Who's someone that's doing a job that I want to do that I can network with? And so I would send them invitations, and I would send them, and it always include a note. And I don't know if you're taking notes or not, but I can tell you 90%, if not all invitations I have received don't have notes with them. And I don't know why. I have zero idea why. And so I just put in a note, hi, I would love to connect with you. Yeah, I really appreciate your work in the field. I've been doing this for a decade. Let me know if you'd like to connect. And I think almost 90% of my invitations, maybe like 80, 90% were accepted because I put a note and I explained why I wanted the connection. So I did that. And then because I was connecting with these people, I would also then go and look at their feeds, and I would like their posts. I would comment on their posts. I think the most valuable thing that I did was I would repost with my own comments, or I would just, share it in general, but especially reposting with my comments and, adding a little bit to it, or maybe it's a long article and I would summarize the article. And what that did is, not only am I, now posting my own stuff, but now people are like, oh, I want to connect with him because he's going to share my stuff. Like he's going to share my stuff and comment on my stuff and give my stuff attention in the LinkedIn algorithm. So then it's a benefit to them to connect with me. And that's what it's all about. It's all about like, how does it benefit them to do this? Because they don't know me. So like, they don't care how it benefits me a lot of the time. And that's fine. Like, that's how we all are. So, so it's kind of
Justin, can I pop in really quick?
yeah, yeah, of course.
I love what you're saying here. So Justin is sharing a lot of the strategies and tactics that we teach in the Getting Hired Playbook for how to get attention, right? To demonstrate thought leadership, posting about the niche that you're in. For a lot of us here, that's digital accessibility. For Justin, it was human resources, and then that evolved. I was also what I found interesting about your employment journey, Justin, was that because of your location and the career path that your wife is on and what her goals were, you were kind of taking a back seat. You're in a smaller area or not a big major metro, and that kind of influenced your decision making process on how you would go about getting a job. what do you think really helped turn that around for you to more focus locally and focus on today rather than something else in the future?
Yeah, I think realizing that there are a lot of remote opportunities. Initially, you know, I wanted opportunities in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I would have loved that. But I didn't actually think that was really possible. I think what started to change that was, specifically looking at people in the state. So finding the local organizations, like the Department of Intellectual Developmental Disabilities, things like that, and then connecting with them. And I guess tell me this is where you want me to go, Tanner, because I think this is where we're going. One thing that happened is a guy, I connected with a guy on LinkedIn that was in Chattanooga, and he messaged me and he wanted to meet up for coffee. And I told him about myself and he was very interested. So we met up at a coffee shop that's like a 10-minute walk from my house. And it was a great conversation. And he was talking about, he wanted to network with me. He wanted to get me connected to other people in the state, because he saw that, he believed I'd be a valuable resource in the state. And that made me realize like I need to do a lot more connecting in the state because I can meet with people like that in person and I can talk to them in a way that I can't do that over Zoom. Like it's a much different thing than you meeting someone in person, especially as a blind person. Like him being able to see me walk through the door, okay, like order my coffee, okay, do all that stuff. It does make a difference, and it is a shame that like that is the case that sometimes people have to see what we're capable of before they'll work with us. But again, that's just kind of how it is a lot of the time.
Tremendous insight, tremendous insight, y'all. People hire people, and that's just how business happens. And you guys are people too, right? And so we've got to go out and demonstrate ourselves, have that conversation, be out in public and do the things, right? Show up to the meetings and ask for those meetings. Right now, I'm in San Francisco. We had the Gaddy Awards last night, and I'm so exhausted. I'm terribly exhausted, and I know that showing up is the right thing to do, right? Just to show up, have a conversation and talk with people, and 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 today, this morning before 7 a.m., I'm insanely grateful that I showed up last night to just have a conversation and connect with people. It's going to help move our business forward. And just as Justin described, it moved his employment goal forward. I remember you talking about that conversation early in the training program, Justin. It was not, I mean, this was just like weeks in, right? Not the Getting Hired Playbook is a 12-week program. And this happened before that was over. And so that kind of the connecting with someone locally opened your eyes up to, wow, how many windows and doors do I not know about locally? What'd you do after that? How did that kind of change your mind about Chattanooga, Tennessee employment opportunities?
So from that point, I went to the guy and asked him to connect me with other people that he knew. Um,
Whoa, whoa. Hey, that's awesome. That's awesome.
and that kind of kicked off a chain of different things happening. I, I will tell you that I connected with a lot of people. I connected with people at Vanderbilt. I connected with people who worked for Disability Rights Tennessee. So many different organizations, and in some of those there were a lot of great opportunities. One thing that came out of that's not paid, but I still do because A, I love doing it, and B, it's just a good thing to do for networking. But I got involved with Vanderbilt runs a mentor program for blind high school students. That's all virtual. And so I got involved with that just so that, again, they know my name. Plus, I get to do what I love anyway, and I can connect with them. And that has probably been the most meaningful of all the connections that I've made locally. Um, there have been a lot of others, and there have been a lot of others that I made online and different opportunities that, for one reason or another, didn't work out. There were a couple opportunities where, sometimes I would talk to everybody. Like I'd go into the company, I'd find the right people on the company page, and I'd talk to them. and they'd be like, man, I feel really good about this. I include their insights in the cover letter, put it in the resume. And I was like, I really think I'm going to get this job. And, 2 weeks later, I don't have the job. Someone else does. And those kind of things are really disappointing because it was like, well, I'm doing all this work. Like, I'm doing all this. Why isn't this happening? And there were instances like that. There was one that was completely my fault where like I thought it was a different kind of interview and I showed up and completely botched it. Like just had no idea like what they were gonna ask. And I walked away from that and I was like, I'm not getting that job. Like there's no way. And sure enough, I didn't. And that taught me a lot. Like I need to do a lot more preparation before I
Mm,
walk into an interview.
mm.
Um,
Dropping some knowledge bombs there. I love that. Like a lot of people are like, hey, I might look up a couple interview questions on Google and maybe that we can be even more strategic and apply those questions to what it might be in my field. But what were some of the questions that caught you off guard? What were some of the ones that you really felt that you nailed? I'm interested to learn more about the interview process.
yeah, so I was applying for a position. It wasn't like it didn't pay a lot, but it was something. And we were going to be, trying to get people with disabilities out to vote before the election, specifically in Tennessee. And so I'm new to Tennessee. Just for context, I didn't grow up here. We moved out here because it's close enough to family, but far enough away. And we love the city. And so like I don't know much about this state. And so like a couple of the questions they'd ask would be like, well, who in the state do you think you can contact that will help people with disabilities get involved? And I was like, well, I don't really know anyone here. And I, kind of answered it the best I could. But the big one, this is the big mistake that I made. Okay. I thought that in August in Tennessee, we were having like this runoff election, which Georgia has sometimes, like primary, where we're just electing a senator. And I thought that's what we were doing. And so I went in there and we're talking about, oh yeah, we got the election coming up for the senator. And they kind of paused and they're like, yeah, but there are a lot of other people on the ballot. And I was like, oh. And I looked it up and it was actually the primary. It was the full primary. And they just have theirs in August, which is so late. Like to me, it's really late. Um, and so I was just shocked, and I was like, okay. But the questions I did answer well are like, what do you bring to the table? What do you, what are your insights? What's your experience in this field? Why are you passionate about getting the people with disabilities to vote? And especially the passionate question, like I can answer that because you know, that's what I'm passionate about. I want people with disabilities involved in every aspect of society, which includes voting. Um, so, I walked away and that was a hard lesson, but I learned it and I figured out like, okay, what I need to do. Um,
So I love that, Justin. I mean, to get in the interview process, right? You're competing against every other person who's applied, right? Uh, I'm here in San Francisco, and I was and talking with a guy who used to work at Tesla, and he said 3,000 applications for every job opening. That's super competitive, right? Like, how are you going to put your how are you going to put yourself at the top of that stack, right? How are you going to be the number one person? Most job openings don't have 3,000 people applying to them. But when you're in an interview, you're literally having a conversation about why you're the number one pick out of everybody else who's applying, despite everybody else who's applying, and despite that you have a disability like blindness. So Justin, when you're thinking about preparation and for interviews, like, knowing what you know now, if you were about to go into an interview, what are some of the things that you want to make sure that you do so that you're ready to answer those questions the best way possible?
I think definitely making sure like to take, the immediate time before the interview, like that first 30 minutes to go on the website of the company and figure out like what what they're doing in the position I'm applying for. So like in the case of the voting thing, like understanding more fully, like the mission statement of the organization, because that's something they asked me about, and I just like I didn't think people actually asked that question. I just thought I don't know why I didn't think to ask the question. And so I didn't know it. I was like, well, this is their broad goal. And, I got it 50% right. Um, and so like, that's something I would do. And then, obviously, well, not obviously, because it wasn't obvious, but if you're, going into a situation like this where you have to do something very specific, not assuming that I know what I'm doing. And like I just assumed, I just made a big assumption. I didn't go Google August Tennessee election. I just was like, oh yeah, I heard about it on the news a little bit, and I was like, oh, it's good enough. I know what's going on, and I just didn't. So I think not assuming what they're going to ask and just preparing for as many possibilities as possible. And I still think like reading through all of there's so many websites that have like a list of 60 interview questions that are commonly asked, and I never get asked all of those, but going through those and then making sure that I'm thinking about my answers, whether I'm writing them out or not, and then just being able to be like, okay, how does this make me stand out? Can I enhance this answer to make me stand out? um that's how
Just
I do it.
in the past, like when, I think the traditional method of applying is like, hey, I fill out an application online, I submit that, hopefully I get an interview. Briefly, what was your success rate taking that approach? And then as you started to shift to like actually getting meetings with people or asking for the meetings and even in person, how do you think that changed things?
Yeah, so the application process, I would say, really didn't get me anywhere. I think when I started meeting with people, there's sort of a plus and a positive and negative to meeting with people. The positive is the people in the organization like know my name. They're sending me stuff. They are interested in having me on board at the very least. Um, what I found, especially, yeah, what I found is that now hiring managers and like the people in HR that are making the decision are, I think, in hiding. Um, I had a lot of trouble finding the actual person that was going to make the final choice. I got, a lot of people in the company and I could talk to them, that were doing the things that I wanted to do. And I could, and they were like happy to speak to HR. But actually, like, I found that like, for example, the person posting the application wasn't, often in my case, just for the field I'm applying in, wasn't the hiring manager. It was just someone in the company. Um, and and they did a really good job of like not telling me who it was, like trying to. So it's tricky because like it's always great to talk to people. You definitely want to talk to the person that's actually going to make the decision. Um, but I still think it's positive just to talk to people in the role, even when it doesn't work out. Just being able to make the connections and have those people send me opportunities down the line, I think is really valuable.
It sounds like you've talked with a lot of people about jobs. Has anyone ever asked you, like, hey, let's go over your resume, or do you ever feel like your resume got you an opportunity?
No, I don't think anyone cared. Like, people wanted to know about my experience and stuff. Um, but I think they were more interested in like, well, what do you know now? Um, and they were more interested in. I think what was telling to them was the kind of questions that I was asking. So
Mm,
I wasn't just asking like, oh, like how many hours do you work, and what is this job like, and blah blah. For me, it was very specific because I have a lot of knowledge about the field, so I can get really down to details. So they start talking about a program. For example, I was applying to a nonprofit that helps people with disabilities travel abroad, whether it's to America or from America. And they would talk about you know different disabilities and stuff like that. And I'd be able to say, like, okay, well, like, but for this specific disability, how many, are you able to provide these specific accommodations? Are you able to, you know, how much of their accommodations can you provide? And those are the questions that would really make them stop and think, because they just thought it was going to be like a casual chat. And instead they had to be like, oh, well, that's something we actually have to really think about a lot. And it depends on, from person to person and where they're going. And these are the factors. And it really got them to go into details. And then, I could take that into a cover letter and I could be like, ah, you guys are about to work on this program. Here's what I would contribute to the program that you're about to work on. Or here's what I would do for this specific population of wheelchair users, or whatever it is. And
Tremendous.
that was important. It still didn't get me that job, but it was good to do.
Yeah, no, what I love about it is like you guys, I mean, Justin is talking about executing on these strategies and tactics that we talk about in the Getting Hired Playbook really, really well. And it's you know what the problem with the interview process is, that they're probably going to ask you a bucket list of questions that they're going to ask everybody, and that prevents you from demonstrating what Justin just described, which is his thought leadership, his insights, his awareness, his knowledge within the field, right? When you're asking them the thoughtful questions, then you're in control of the conversation. You can guide the direction. You can literally control how your value comes to the surface and how differentiating that is versus everybody else who just answers the questions. Right? When you come with thoughtful insight about their business or questioning how they're going to be doing things, it puts you in a whole different category.
So,
So
so I want to talk, and this is okay, Tanner. I want to talk about the getting the job I have now, because it
yes,
was very different from everything, and it built on the LinkedIn foundation, and that was super important.
yeah, let's do it's we're about halfway through. So if you guys want, let's do this, Justin, for about another 10 minutes, and then we'll open it up to Q&A.
Cool. So, okay, so this job, okay, I've been doing this. I started doing LinkedIn like in March, right? And it's getting to September, and I've had like 10 opportunities just not work out at this point. And I'm like, I have no idea like what I'm gonna do. And I'm rethinking everything. I'm still posting on LinkedIn during this time because I'm like, well, I have connections over there. You never know. And I still have some things cooking, but I'm losing a lot of confidence. And I get this message from someone that's like, hey, I'd love for you to check out my nonprofit. We're looking for people in Chattanooga. Are you interested? And I'm just a heads up, there are a ton of scams out there. I mean, tons. Um, I probably encountered 5 of them, and I wasn't applying every day. So I did not have any faith in this. And I went on the website, and the website was sparse, like hardly anything. And I was like, this does not look real. And I just replied, and I was like, hey, I'd love to learn more. I tried finding out information on your website. Can you give me more details about like what I would be doing? I didn't hear back from them for 3 weeks, and I thought that was it. I never expected to hear from them again. And I got a message. I'm still posting LinkedIn doing all that. And I got a message again, and it was like, hey, actually, we're having an info session tomorrow night at 6 p.m. virtually. Do you want to come? And I was like, well, sure, why not? I don't have anything else going on. And so I showed up. I was the only one there. There was like a bunch of the staff members, because they do like a team. There was like 8 staff members, which is a lot. And I was like, wow. And it was just me. And so they're telling me about the company. I'm like, wow, this company sounds really good. And it sounds like I'd really fit. And then at the end of that, they go, all right, now we're going to ask you some questions. And I was like, I did not come for an interview. Like, I did not know this is what we were about to do. I have no preparation at all. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe they'll be easy. And man, they were not easy. They were hard. There was only like 5 of them, but I had to stop and think for like 30 seconds about each one. They weren't none of them were like the generic interview questions I was ready for.
Can you share with us if you remember what the general framework was of the question?
Yeah. So like one of them was like, how would you, well, some of them were off the wall, like just to get you thinking, like, um, if you were to release an album, a music album this year, what would it be called and why? And I was like, what the heck? Like, what kind of question is this? And, I had to answer that. One of them was like, how would you, um, how would you, I can't remember honestly, but it was very much like, how would you respond in this situation or that situation when I hadn't really thought of it. It's like specifically working with their clients and things like that, which are clients with disabilities. And I was like, I don't, I don't know. And so I just kind of improv basically. I was like, well, I'm just going to try this out and just completely let my guard down and just say what I'm thinking, and see where we go. And that worked, really well. And I mean, luckily, and so that went well. And then they're like, okay, well, now we'd like you to come for an actual interview. And before that, they even sent me like a list of questions I had to answer. Like, you have a client that has a disability that's having trouble focusing at work. What are the things you would do? And I had to answer that even before I would get the interview. Um, and I go to the interview and it's at this community center. I'm like, well, I guess they don't have an office. So like, we're just going here to do it. So I got like, I went out, I bought a blazer because I was like, I need this. Like, I haven't, I'm just thinking I'm doing virtual interviews. Okay, I'm going to get that blazer. I'm going to get all this stuff. And I show up, and what we're doing is I'm watching two of the staff work with two of their clients at a community center. And like one client's playing bingo. Actually, no, they're all playing bingo because a part of one client's work goal, which I won't go into. That's a story. And then the other client's just a part of her like socializing. So I'm in my suit for like 2 hours just playing bingo. And I'm like, when are we gonna like ask questions? Like, when am I gonna like have to answer all these interview questions that I just reviewed and prepped for? And at the end of it, they were like, wow, you know what? We'd really love to work with you. That's really awesome. We really enjoyed, we'll send over the paperwork in a week or so and let you know. And I was like, that's it? And they're like, yeah. And I left. And I was like, so the time that I thought it was an interview, it was an interview. And the time that I thought it was an interview, it wasn't. And it was just crazy. And then I had to negotiate with them for the offer and everything worked out. So my point in telling you all this is like, because it can make it seem like, what was the point of everything that came before? Because that's so random. And for me, what the point of it is that I built I built a LinkedIn profile that looked really good. And I did that with the help of Tanner and Marianne and everyone else. And to the point that this person could reach out to me and be like, we'd really like you to do this, and just be so confident. And then having gone through those interviews that didn't work out, really helped me think in the moment of like, okay, I've done a few interviews before. I know what kind of answers they want. So let me try to sort of improv my way into this since I wasn't ready. And if I hadn't done those interviews, I wouldn't have been able to do that. So all of that, I mean, it took months and it happened in a way that I didn't expect it to happen. It wasn't even on my radar, but that's kind of the point. Like when you do all this LinkedIn stuff, you do all this networking stuff, you have zero idea what is going to happen. It could go the way you think, or it could just be someone just happens to come across you. And that's it. So I just really encourage you. I know before I started this, a lot of my friends and even myself, it's just like, well, it's just LinkedIn. Like LinkedIn's kind of stupid. It's just like a social media for employed people. What's the point of it? And you're not going to go anywhere. No one really goes anywhere to that. It's all you just got to apply. You just got to meet people in real life. But LinkedIn is now virtual networking. And especially as blind people, that's probably the best form of networking we can get because we can't afford to like take a bus or a train or fly out to like, these conferences where all these people are. We can't afford to do that. We can't we have to meet people where they are, which is online right now. And if some of those people in our area, absolutely, we can find them online. And if we have that profile, they're interested. But if we don't, they're not going to pay attention. And then it just feels like rejection and discouragement. Whereas like not only having a good LinkedIn profile, but having a valuable LinkedIn account where it's like, oh wow, I want to connect with this guy because he's going to benefit me. He's going to help me out in my work. He's going to support me during that. that's what gets people excited and really interested. And to the point that like even without this, I would just have people that I didn't know just message me and be like, "Hey, have you heard about this opportunity?" Just people I never even talked to before because they saw that like I had the potential to do really good work. So that's what you're capable of. And there's going to be times if you do this where it just doesn't feel like anything's working and it just feels pointless and it's just really disheartening. And I do want to say that like you're allowed to take breaks too. Like there'd be a week or here or there, but I just didn't post anything. I was just so down and I was just really struggling. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't apply. I couldn't post. I was just tired, and that's okay. And because I allowed myself to have that break, I could come back with that energy restored and try again. But I had to be gentle with myself and take those breaks too. And it can feel like that's not acceptable because, like, oh, I have to get a job now. It has to be right now. If I'm not doing anything today with LinkedIn or applying, then I'm just useless and I'm wasting everyone's time. Like, those are things that I would tell myself. And that's not true. Like, that's not true at all. You can't, I couldn't work until I died. I can't do that as an employed person either. I can't work until I die. Like, I have to do what I know I have the energy to do because I'm here for quality, not quantity. I want the stuff I put out to be worth it instead of like, oh, you just wrote this in like 30 seconds. I didn't think about it. So just consider that. And I really hope you give LinkedIn a chance. Your journey will be very different from mine because that's the thing. We're all on different paths with this stuff. We're all going to make connections in different ways. We all have personalities that are going to come out in different ways and are going to resonate with different kinds of people. And so your connections are going to be very different and your personality is going to be very different. And that's okay. Just work with it, know yourself, know the people you're connecting with, and just get comfortable with that and see where it takes you. And you can do other stuff too. LinkedIn takes you, like once you get settled into it, at most 10 minutes a day. So if you don't want to do it a lot and you're like, well, I don't want to waste my whole day doing this, all you have to do is just 10 minutes. Then you can do whatever else you want, all the job applications, whatever else. But you have 10 minutes. And then all those other things, you can link your LinkedIn profile and just be like, hey, you know what? I'm going to send a cover letter, I'm going to send a resume, and I'm going to send my LinkedIn profile. And then because you have that profile, whenever you apply, you can then find those people that work there and be like, hey, I just applied to your company, would love to chat. And now they see your LinkedIn, they see you in the application pool, and they're like, wow, this guy's really making, or this girl, I keep saying this guy because I'm a guy, but wow, this person is really making the extra effort and is really making themselves stand out. So that's my recommendation.
Incredible. There's so much more to be had there. Many nuggets that you're just barely, brushing the dust off the surface of. So thank you so much. I mean, everything from career exploration, changing your direction to the interview process, taking the break, mental health, and believing yourself, and just showing up. I mean, so many great things. I want to open it up to questions, and I want people to be super duper selfish, as you're asking Justin questions about his journey, or about what you should do. So I'm going to get some time for you guys to interact with Justin and ask some questions now. So if you want, you can come off mute and or raise your hand, and Huli can pull you off mute as well.
Hi, it's Yael Saperstein. Hi,
Hello.
Justin. Thank you so much for talking to us today. I really appreciate it. I just want to share just some of my experiences here in New York with employment and then ask you a question. I think it's very hard to prepare for an interview. I think there are general questions that you could have certain scenarios in place in your mind of how you're going to answer. For example, I find here in New York, they ask a lot of questions about, how would you work as a team member? What was the conflict you once had with a colleague and how did you resolve it? How would you problem solve if you had a problem? These are general questions you could prepare scenarios for, in terms of your previous experiences or work experiences. But I also think it's important to keep your answers as detailed as can be, but in the briefest way. They don't like long-winded answers, I find. But I'm also curious, and I think this is also something they look at that's very important. whether you prepared questions based on the specific interview, like companies like to know that you research their company and that you're prepared to, you have information about their company and you have questions at the end for them. Basically, were you able to ask questions of the company about different aspects of their job? And I think that's also very important for you to be able to ask those questions, and they look to see that you definitely are interested and you research their company well. Were you able to have that opportunity as well?
Yeah, and I think for me, like, I think this, I feel fortunate in that, like, I'm doing something that I'm passionate about, like, in the field that I'm passionate about, because I can just easily, like, I have particular ideas about how we should be treating people with disabilities. And so I'm, asking questions that are related to that, and like asking, like, you know, how do you, how do you prioritize clients? Like, how do you work with clients? What's your philosophy about disability? Like, I'm asking those questions because that's really important to me. I think, I think it gets really hard when I would try applying for a more, corporate job, or a more like, um, traditional job. I don't want to say traditional job, but that's what it feels like to me, because this is just nonprofit work is very different, I think. Um, it's a lot harder because the questions you can ask are very, like, there's a lot of easy questions you can go to, and unfortunately, if you ask those questions, um, you're not standing out because anyone can ask those questions. I mean, you are standing out because you're asking, and not everyone does. Um, so I think, in my opinion, when trying to apply for like a corporate job or something like that, it's really like trying to be as specific with them, like, what project are you working on right now? And I think, like, some of those times, like, you can't find those questions on the website. You can't find them in the company info. But you can ask, like, well, what projects are you about to start? Like, what project would I be working on as soon as I started? And those questions are really interesting to them because then they get to share, like, oh, this is what we're doing. And then you can kind of, well, I could kind of like tee off that and be like, oh, yeah, this is what I would bring to the project. This is how I would help. And that's not, you can research in general what kinds of projects they do. So, like, kind of think about it ahead of time. But, and not every role will have questions you can ask like that. But I think stuff like that, that's maybe not easily findable, I think that means a lot because that shows you really put thought into it. And you put thought into, like, well, what is my role going to be like in the company? And that helps them too because they want to know the same thing. So if you ask, like, what am I going to be working on, or like, what's this, what does this situation look like in your company? And the framing of what will I do in these situations, that helps them because then they're like, okay, yeah, I see that he or she would act as. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you so much, Justin.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's super tough to be concise. And I'm chatty Cathy too. So it's like, oh, how do I boil down everything that I'm trying to say in the most like powerful way possible? So that's a great question.
And I would say too that, like, I honestly don't ramble. Like, try not to ramble, try to be as concise as possible. But, like, if you're being as concise as you can be, and there's like an employer that's like, you're too rambling, and they don't hire you because of that. And first of all, we never know why they don't hire and why they do. Uh, but if that's the reason, you're probably not going to do well at the company anyway. Because, like, people that talk in certain ways get along with people that talk the same way a lot of the time. So people that tend to ramble, like me, because I like to talk, often it's because we make connections between different things. Like, we're connecting things that other people don't connect. And so that makes our answer go on. And if an employer doesn't see that in your answer and doesn't value that in your answer, then it's probably not a good fit.
Good point. Good point. Thank you, Yale, for that question. What other questions? Don't feel like you can't ask a second one, Yale. But what other questions do we have for Justin?
This is Mary Beth Ritter.
Hello.
Hi. Thanks for doing this. And my question is, I am transitioning into this field of digital accessibility. I know what I know, but there are things that I don't know, and I am terrified of a question where I just simply have absolutely no answer. How do you gracefully get out of going, I have no idea? It's like I have an interview coming up later today, and this is my greatest fear.
No, that's completely understandable. And I think if you're asked that question, I think it's very fair to say, well, you know what, I don't like. I recommend being honest, because if you,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
yeah,
But it's just I don't want to come off as I have no. It's kind of like
yeah. But so
I mean, my thought. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, you're good. I think it's okay to say I don't know, but here's what I do know. Like, so trying to relate the knowledge you have to that specific question. So it's like, well, I don't know the specifics of that, but here's something similar that I've worked on before. And I'm wondering if this knowledge would contribute to what you're talking about. So then it kind of puts the question back on them after you explain your experience. You'd be like, so like, do you think this is related to what you're talking about? Do you think this would be helpful to you in the company?
Yeah,
And
and you, Justin, you just described like in that first quote unquote interview that you got before the bingo interview that there were several questions where you had to think for about 30 seconds or so before you provided an answer. So yeah, you can definitely create space too, Mary Beth, for you. Hey, let me think about that for a second. You know what? I'm not sure, but this is what I do know. I love that retort, Justin. It's great, great advice.
and take your time. Like, seriously, take your time. I literally took 30 seconds, and I know because I hate pauses like that. And I was counting in my head while I was trying to think of something. I was like, oh my gosh, it's been 30 seconds. I have to, like, that's okay. When it's a silence feels eternal. It just
Yes,
seems
it does.
stretch. So, but let it, like, just let it stretch, and let yourself think about it. And then it's like, and then when you talk, you're ready. You've got your ducks in a row, and they will appreciate. I mean, if they don't appreciate that, they don't deserve you. Like, anyone that cares about you can see that you're putting thought into it, and that's what they should value in it. Not that you've got like this ready AI answer kit going. They need to see that you're a person, that you're thinking about things, and you're taking it seriously, and that's not just another item on your list. And sometimes those pauses reinforce that.
Great question, Mary Beth. I'm so excited for you. Please keep us updated on how things go. Who else has I think we have time for maybe one or two other questions, and then we'll give you guys back a little bit of time back in your day.
You said that you worked with Mary Ann.
Yep.
Was she at the Carroll Center?
No, Marianne is at NIB. She works with Tanner and stuff. I can't pronounce her last name.
Happily.
There you go. Yeah, so she works at NIB and does a lot of NSI TV work as well.
Do you
Hey,
have
Justin.
to, if you're looking for a remote job, do you have to work with her?
No.
Cool. Do you have to have LinkedIn if you're looking for a remote job?
You have to have, I mean, I think you have to have LinkedIn to find any job right now, unless you're like going to go and apply in person and do all that. I think if you're applying for things online, you definitely have to have LinkedIn.
That's where I found this job I'm interviewing for is through LinkedIn as well. So
yeah. I think someone else had a question. I didn't catch your name.
Justin, this is Jason Menzie. I was curious what the time frame was from when you started seeking employment to when you finally found the job you have, and if at any point in time you considered giving up on seeking employment.
Oh yeah, I started in January and I didn't get a job until end of October. So what? That's like 9 months. February, March, April, May, July, August. It's 10 months. And yeah, I wanted to quit every other day. I'm just gonna be straight up. I hated it. It was exhausting. But being rejected is hard. For a week, I quit and I'm going to come back next week. So do what you can and be gentle with yourself. I would say for me, it was really hard to be gentle with myself. I had people around me that could tell me, like, Justin, I know it doesn't seem like you're trying to, but I can tell that you're trying. And that's enough for me. And it was really important to have those people that were aware of what I was doing that could be supportive when I just felt like I was just hitting my head against the wall and doing nothing and I wasn't doing it good enough. Those people could be like, no, like you really are doing this. Okay. And having people that really believed in me too, and just being like, hey, you know, you have the skills to do this job. You have the skills to network with these people, get in this field. I believe you're going to have a job. And those same people would often like have their ears open and eyes open to try to find things, and they would send me opportunities. So just having people even doing that with like in the darkest time would encourage me to be like, you know what, Tanner believes in me. Tanner says I'm going to have this. And I know Tanner doesn't like BS. He doesn't just say stuff. He's not going to lie to me. If he doesn't think I'm going to do something, he's going to tell me I'm not able to do it from his perspective. And just be honest about it. So having someone like him be able to say, no, like keep going. You're going to get this. It means a lot. I hope that's helpful because I know it's a dark time. I feel like being unemployed is a really dark time. And you need all the support you need and all the self-care you need and really now's the time to figure out like who you are and what you're capable of. And you will find out before you're employed. You will find out who you are, what you're capable of.
Justin, thank you so much for being so candidly honest about how difficult this is, how mentally exhausting, emotionally exhausting this is. Unemployment is seriously tiring and difficult. It's actually the reason accessibility officer, you know, was thought about, right? And the CAT program and it's like the Getting Hired Playbook. All of this stuff was born from firsthand experience of this shit is hard. And but you guys are all here because just like Justin said, you're capable of doing it, right? You guys are all here because you've raised your hand, you've stepped up, and you've put forth the effort, and you're going to continue to do so. And we're going to support you along that way. Justin, super duper appreciative that you came on to share your knowledge and insights. Is there any one thing that you would want people to take away from this, or anything you want to close with?
Yeah, obviously join LinkedIn, do it today. If you're not already, update your profile, do all the things, put a profile picture up, put all your resume and stuff on there, connect with all the people you know, and then start connecting with people you don't know, and including me. You're welcome to find me on LinkedIn. You can find me as a mutual connection of Tanner. I'm Justin Heard, Heard, like I heard you. And you can always connect that way, and I'm happy to talk more. And I'm happy to include you in my network too. Like I just connect with people that are trying to improve the lives of people with disabilities. So like all of you, I'm happy to connect with and support your work. And if I'm connecting with you, that's one more person that maybe someone sees you as like a second degree connection. It's like, oh yeah, that person did accessibility testing, and I have a mutual connection with Justin, so let me reach out. So definitely do that if you're looking for work, and I'm happy to connect with you all.